2025 may have only just started, but it's already looking to be one of the best years ever for cozy gamers. As not only do we have more cozy games than ever before, we also have such a wide variety of cozy games to choose from. And I spent the last couple of weeks going through every cozy game demo I could find to bring you one of the strongest top 10 upcoming cozy game lists I can make. First up is Campervan Make It Home. Ever since I finished unpacking, I have been searching for another game to make me feel the same way it did. And finally, I think I found one that might just do that. The game starts you off with your very own campervan, which straight away you get to customize to be whatever you want it to be, allowing you to choose anything from the color of paint your van is to which kind of wood you use inside the campervan for all the surfaces. Then it's your job to unpack all of your belongings and put them away. Now, as this is a campervan which you'll be living out of, space is rather tight. And not only is your toilet in a drawer and your shower hidden in the floor, this means that there's almost a puzzle-solving aspect to you trying to figure out where each of the items belong. Now, some of the items are a little bit more obvious than others. Like the plates, for example, they clearly fit in the plate rack. But other items are going to require you to play around a little bit more to try and find the perfect space. And I found myself needing to rearrange a couple of times because I just couldn't fit everything in. I really did enjoy seeing all of the ingenious ways this campervan had for creating extra storage. And although the demo itself was just set in one location, they've said that the full game will see you journey through forests, snowy plains and cliffs, stopping off at various places as you'll go. And you'll even get to adopt your very own pet. The way the item snaps inside of the drawers and the cupboards when you try and place them makes the gameplay really satisfying and enjoyable. And much like the likes of unpacking, you'll be able to uncover an entire person's story just by the items that you unpack. And the best part is, not only is this coming out in 2025, but it's coming to PC and also Nintendo Switch. Next up, I just want to thank today's sponsor, Power Wash Sim, who are releasing a brand new Wallace and Gromit themed DLC on March 4th. Now, you probably already know that I love Power Wash Sim. It's my go-to game whenever I'm stressed, as it's just so unbelievably satisfying. But one thing you might not know is how much I love Wallace and Gromit. And I feel like I say this every time Power Wash Sim announces a brand new DLC, but this was truly a crossover I never anticipated. Seeing you clean Wallace and Gromit's house, the Knit-O-Matic, and so many other iconic items and places. And this DLC reminded me of the old days of sitting down and watching the Wallace and Gromit VHS tapes in my grand's house with my brother. And honestly, what's cozier than a little bit of nostalgia? And the best part is, this is out now, not only on Nintendo Switch, but also PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, and all of the Xbox consoles. So if you want to check out the Wallace and Gromit DLC for yourself, make sure you click the link in the description down below. And thank you again for sponsoring today's video. Next up, we have Grimshire. Now, in 2025, it is truly hard for a farming sim to stand out. But somehow Grimshire not only stood out in a sea of other farming sim releases, but just after the demo alone has become one of the games I am the most looking forward to, as Grimshire sets itself apart in almost every way possible. The game starts you off by making your very own animal character, allowing you to choose between a bear, a rabbit, and a fox, each of them with their own specific skills and perks. The story then begins with you being washed up on the shore of Grimshire. And it's not long before you're told that you're one of the few people who made it out of the capital alive. A capital which they now say has been burnt to the ground. And if that isn't weird enough, the person who is rescued alongside of you is gravely injured and covered in scratches. Now, after hearing everything you've been through, the town comes together to welcome you in. They give you a farmhouse to live in and even prepare gifts to try and make your stay more welcome. But you see, Grimshire has a problem. Up until now, most of their food has been imported from the capital, a place which, as far as you're told, is now in complete chaos. So the townspeople now look to you for help, because without the farm, they stand no chance gathering enough supplies to make it through the winter. Now at first, this just seems to be a normal farming sim with some slightly higher stakes, where you get to spend your days fishing, farming and foraging, with plenty of villagers to befriend, romance and buy items from. But something about this town feels a little bit off, and the villagers just seem to give off some interesting vibes. And the demo just left me with a ton of unanswered questions that I cannot wait to play the full game to get an answer to. Like, for example, getting to the bottom of what's going on in the capital city, but also there's this whole other side of the story that's got me wondering, are the townspeople even telling the truth, or did they just really need a farmer? I feel like farming sims with really good stories are so hard to find at the moment, and this just got me so intrigued and so interested straight away. And the good news is the developers have already said that they'll be looking to bring this to the Nintendo Switch as well. Next up we have Is This Seat Taken? As you guys already know, I absolutely love a good puzzle game. A Little to the Left, Doth Romantic and Stitch being among some of my favourites. And Is This Seat Taken is going to be a wonderful addition to this list. You see, every single one of these puzzles is to do with placing each of the picky characters into their correct seats, with each character having very specific requirements. Now this could be as simple as I want to sit next to my friends, or it could be as demanding as I want a window seat facing forwards away from everyone. And it's your job to figure out the best way to place them to make everyone happy. Now the demo itself featured a few different scenes for the puzzles to take place. It started off with you placing people into cars and limos, and thankfully the game started off very easy and each of the puzzles gradually got harder. And then it moved on to the cinema, where people would request wild things like wanting to be close to someone who has popcorn just so they can steal it. Later levels, they added the added difficulty of having people with giant hats on, and you couldn't place them in front of anyone else in the cinema, otherwise they couldn't see. And these puzzles just struck a wonderful balance between being intriguing and a little bit difficult, but also not frustrating whatsoever. You see, the game will tell you if someone's not happy, making it really easy to spot when you need to change things up so you can get the full score each level. I can't wait to see what the full game has in store and what scenarios they are, and this is honestly one of the reasons why I love Steam Next Fest, because I had no idea this game existed until now, and now I'm so excited for it to release. Next up is Ila A Frosty Gluide. This is an absolutely gorgeous game that was an absolute pleasure to play. And it's honestly the first time in a while where I found a game that captured the same magic as A Short Hike did. This will see you play as Ila, a young witch in training who's on the hunt for her missing cat. But this isn't any ordinary journey, as this is a journey guided by the memories of her mother. And this will see you soar through snowy mountains, enchanted forests, and stunning landscapes, finding secrets all along the way. Along your journey, you'll also be able to find chests that will give you money, allowing you to upgrade your broom and glide further to reach new areas and explore places you've never seen before. The reason why I enjoyed this so much was just the movement. This could so easily have been a game that got frustrating fast, but the broom mechanics just felt intuitive and easy, and I enjoyed exploring every nook and cranny there was to find. And although we have no release date as of yet, they have already confirmed that this will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Next up, we have Small Spaces. If you're someone who loves building and decorating in The Sims, then this game is going to be a dream come true. As Small Spaces is all about turning small apartments into beautifully designed dioramas. And even though I'm not someone who's skilled at designing or decorating whatsoever, the game makes it really easy to make something that looks incredible. Now, one thing I really appreciate about this is the fact that you're given not only a theme that the room needs to adhere to, so you kind of have an idea about what kind of vibe you're shooting for, but there's also some objectives for you to complete as well. So for example, the build I was doing, it said you needed to make a reading nook in the bedroom, meaning that you have an idea about what the room is going to be used for, and a little feature that you need to add in as well. And I just found this little hint as to what to do and what to place in there was enough for me to spend an hour decorating the space and having fun. I also love that this is a little bit more on the realistic side with the lighting and the textures, as it's not often you get to see a game like this. Now, each of the items and even the surfaces can be customized further, allowing you to change the color of them. And most of the items are designed in a way that makes the room feel real and lived in. And although this demo wasn't perfect, there was definitely some tweaking that needs to be done with some of the decoration aspects, just to make it a little bit easier to play and a little bit more intuitive. This was unbelievably relaxing, and I love the fact that you can play around with the different lightings and time of the day to get the perfect photo when you're done decorating. Next up is Town to City. Now, this wasn't actually a demo, but it is a recently announced game that I had to include on this list, because I mean, look how gorgeous this is. Now, this kind of gives Tiny Glade vibes, allowing you to build an entire city starting from absolutely nothing. And as your population grows, so too will the amount of buildings that you can place, going from just simple houses to being able to place shops, amenities, and so much more as you grow. And I love the fact that you can even see the people walking and living in the city that you made. Now, one thing that really made this stand out to me is the fact that not only is there a sandbox mode where you can create whatever you want to, there's also going to be a story that runs alongside of this as well. And even though we have no release date yet, I can't wait to see what more information they give us about this absolutely gorgeous game. Next up, we have Monster Care Sim. Now, whenever I'm playing Pokemon and I have to go drop off my Pokemon at the daycare center, I always think to myself, I'd love a game where I get to do that. You know, a game that lets you take care of the Pokemon. You get to wash them, clean them, look after them. That's something I need in my life. Well, Monster Care Sim is actually exactly that, just with their own take of monsters instead of Pokemon. And this will see you run your very own monster daycare center. So basically your day starts off with someone walking in with their monster. You then need to analyze them to see if there's anything wrong with them. Now, this could be anything from them just being dirty and needing to be cleaned, but they can also wind up being frozen, being stung, or even on fire. So it's up to you to defrost them, take out all the objects from them, or extinguish them to make sure that they're safe to go in your daycare center. Now, once you've taken care of all of their immediate issues, you can then set them free in the garden and do your best to try and make them happy. And you can do this by giving them toys to play with, play the music, or even by giving them a snack or petting them. There is just one problem though, and that is if they're angry enough, they might just start randomly attacking the other monsters that you have in your garden. So what I wound up doing is making a little timeout area where I'd shove the monsters until I could make them happy enough that they'd stop attacking everyone else. And at times it was chaotic, but I also absolutely loved it. Then at the end of the day, the owners will come back and pay you depending on how good a job you did. You can then use the money that you've earned to upgrade your daycare center even further. Now, even though I only played the demo, the developers have given a roadmap for the full release, which includes the ability for the monsters to produce eggs, which you can hatch. Also the ability for you to raise your very own monsters, and there's apparently going to also be a cafe that you can open and run for the monsters and their people as well. I'm honestly really enjoying the fact that 2025 seems to be the shop sim era, and I can't wait to see what other ones we get to see this year. Next up, we have Dragon Song Tavern. Now, I absolutely love a good restaurant management game. The issue is, there's really not that many of them. So when I saw a trailer for Dragon Song Tavern, I was immediately excited, as this looks to be everything that I've been looking for. A mix between being a restaurant management game, but also have some elements of life sim in it to keep it interesting. And most importantly, somehow make the game feel not all that stressful, as sometimes restaurant and cooking sims can be a little bit too much. And thankfully, we already know this is coming to the Nintendo Switch as well as PC. The game starts you off with you spending all of your money on a rundown tavern, which, considering I've seen every series of Kitchen Nightmares, I know is a very risky move. Now, soon after they move in, they discover that this tavern is already occupied by a dragon. but thankfully this dragon is more offended by bad business than he is trespassers. So he decides to help you on your quest to make this tavern into the town's main attraction. Now there are aspects of farming inside of this, but even if you're burnt out on farming sims, thankfully this is just one tiny aspect of a much bigger game. As each day you'll need to go out and collect the ingredients you need, be it from your farm, shops, or even foraging and fishing. You'll then have the option to process some of your items if you're willing to wait, like for example turning your wheat into flour or turning your milk into cheese. And then once you have everything you need, it's then your job to prepare and cook all of the food for your menu. Now, one thing I actually really enjoyed about this is the fact that there isn't really many mini games for you to do. Don't get me wrong, I love a good mini game, but I also hate when it really slows down gameplay, especially when it comes to restaurant sims. But thankfully, this strikes the balance well. Now, once you've cooked everything you need and set the menu for the day, you then get to serve the customers. And again, this struck a nice balance with it being purposeful, but also not stressful. You'll want to serve the customers as fast as possible to keep the queue from building up and to get the maximum amount of money you can out of the day, but there's also no big time crunch either. The game itself is also really pretty and I did love running around the world. The only thing I really hope happens in the full game is as the tavern gets a little bit busier, the world also fills out a little bit more, as it feels weird being the only people running around. It's one of those games I'm really excited for if they give it long enough to cook. Next up we have BloomTale, which is another shop sim that I absolutely loved. Now BloomTale is a little bit different from everything I've talked about before, as this is a flower shop sim with a wonderful mix between creativity when it comes to arranging the flowers, but also making sure that you satisfy each of the customer's requests. You see, much like in real life, each flower in BloomTale has a different meaning. So when customers come in asking for flowers or bouquets to convey a certain feeling, it's up to you to pick the correct flower for the occasion. Now, as you progress through the game, it will unlock even more flowers for you to get to grips with and allow you to make bigger and better bouquets with them. But there's more to running a flower shop than just making the arrangements, as it's up to you to tend to the plants to make sure they're not only the highest quality, but they're also not covered in bugs. There's also an element of puzzle solving when it comes to figuring out exactly what the customer wants, and sometimes they're not really great at saying what they need. And it was this aspect that really kept the game interesting. And the full release of the game will feature 50 different flowers to unlock and a ton of customization available. Now, the one thing that really surprised me was the detail to the flower arranging, as not only could you flip the flowers around and tilt them at different angles so you could make the perfect bouquet, but I love the fact that even if you picked 2 flowers of the same type, they weren't identical. Meaning, much like in real life, no 2 flower bouquets you ever make will be exactly the same, and I loved that attention to detail. And this game is one of the reasons why I love cozy games. Flower arranging would never have been something I gravitated towards in real life, but in a game, I was thoroughly enjoying it. Again, we have no news of a release date or which platforms to expect it on as of right now, but fingers crossed for Switch/Switch 2. Our final game on today's list is Monsterest. Now, this actually came up on my recommended list on Steam as a demo to try, and the trailer immediately hooked me, as this is a slightly different take to a hotel management game. As in this, the customers are actually monsters. And the gameplay style seems to be a great mix between being part farming and life sim, but also part management game. This starts you off by waking up in a strange world, a world filled with monsters where you're the only human. And it turns out these monsters aren't the biggest fan of humans. And you basically get told somehow that if you want to go back home, you're going to have to run this monster in to make enough money to do that. So your days are filled with building and decorating each of the rooms and gathering the materials to craft everything you need. You'll then need to greet each of the customers at the door and fill the room with anything extra they may need. And once the guests are happily settled in their room, you then have to keep them happy by taking them outside to do their favourite activities. And of course, as you go, you'll be looking to upgrade the hotel so you can not only have more rooms, but also attract more customers. And although this has a lot of the things that make up a classic farming sim experience, adding in the fact that you own your very own inn made this feel like a completely new and different experience. Now, I believe this game in particular is pretty early on in development. There's no release date and no news of which consoles it's going to come to, but this will definitely be at home on the Switch. That's it for my list of the top 10 games I played at Steam Next Fest. Let me know your favourites in the comments down below. And if you want to see more upcoming cozy games confirmed for 2025, click this video here.